Greetings and welcome once again to the Gaming Codex, the show where I try to explain to you as many terms and words used within video games and the video games industry because their meaning is important so that we all understand exactly what we are talking about. And today's term is tutorial. According to the general definition, there are two ways of interpreting this term. One is that a tutorial is a method of transferring knowledge that may be used as a part of a learning process. And to be more precise, a tutorial is a computer program whose purpose is to assist users in learning how to use parts of a software product, such as an office suite or any other application, operating system interface, programming tool, or video game. What should be added is that it doesn't have to be a separate computer program, but part of one. After all computer games tend to have some sort of a tutorial built into them, even though some do not actually seem to have one at first glance. A tutorial is important. It is the means by which a game will teach the player how to play. Ideally, it accurately conveys the rules, the general idea of the game, and what the players can expect as they play. That is the ideal objective of the tutorial. But there are many ways through which a tutorial can do this. There are many things a developer can do that will shape the user's experience through that tutorial process that will make the learning process easier, or will make them outright quit a game and never bother with it again. There are many ways in which a tutorial can be implemented in a video game depending on its complexity, on its mechanics, on its core ideas. One of the worst ones possible is to take the player out of the game. And I don't mean to do it in a sense of immersion, no, I mean, hey, go watch this YouTube video about how to play. No, oh god no. Or, hey, go read this wall of text about how to play. Again, it can convey the information, but I'm not saying it's a good way to teach people how to play, because this is a game. There's interaction involved, there's doing what is written there involved. So ideally, a tutorial will be built into the game. It will be playable, which leads us to the popular definition of a tutorial, and that would be, oh god, not this again, skip. You will see a certain behavior when it comes to tutorials and players. They will generally not want to play tutorials. They will try their best to skip them as much as possible, on account of they've played games before and they've played tutorials before, and they know that most tutorials are absolute garbage. There's an old saying that you should make no assumptions about your player. Some of them may have years of experience playing games, to some this may be their first one. Some may be familiar with the core concept of your game because they like games in that genre. To others, it may be completely alien, so you have to find a way to cater to everyone by making a tutorial that teaches them all how to play your game. That doesn't mean that every goddamn game should act like it invented camera movements and make me spend goddamn minutes, learning how to use the camera and not actually teaching me how to play the game. This tends to be a problem because a lot of tutorials are not structured properly. For example, if you know how to move a camera, you shouldn't be forced to go through that part of the tutorial again, because it will be boring, it will offer you no information, it will be just bad content. Which is why some games like the excellent Europa Universalis or Crusader Kings series or Hearts of Iron have tutorials that are about a couple of hours long that detail each component of the game separately. So if you don't want to know about the first bits, because you know, you've turned on a computer before in your life, you can just jump on to the taxation component and their bellic political intrigue chart simulator that is Hearts of Iron until the war starts, you know. There's also the problem that a lot of games, especially looking now at MMOs or MMO-ish games coming out of Asia, you know who you are, you've done this to me constantly, they will interrupt the process of learning the tutorial with messages, constant ones, pop-ups that take you out of the game and only serve to tell you that, hey, you did it. Okay, you could have done that with a light. You could have popped up a green light telling me that I repeated the process you told me to repeat accurately. You don't have to constantly have those pop-ups constantly grating on my nerves. I know that this may not sound like something that's important. I'm here to tell you that I did a show a couple of years ago. It ran for about 100 episodes where I played pretty much every free MMO that was on the market then. They all had this tutorial, and it was one of the worst experiences in a game possible. The greatest tutorials ever made, the ones that pretty much teach you how to play the game perfectly, are the ones you never notice. The ones that teach you this game and this game alone, not how to move a camera, not how to play every game of this kind in general. No, a game that teaches you its own mechanics. Super Mario Bros. Has one of the best tutorials ever. You have no idea it's there, but the first screen is the perfect tutorial for that kind of game. For a lot of games, it doesn't apply to multiple types of games, but for that game it is perfect. It teaches you through play. If you don't jump over the thing, you die. Well, how do I know which button does the jumping? You press them. It's easy. You're expected to interact with the game of your own volition, not because you're prompted to. It's expected that you're here to play it, not to have it be played at you, if that makes sense. Or tutorials from games like Half-Life, where each segment gives you access to progressively more complex, though it's a first-person shooter, they're not complex, but more nuanced, more content, more ideas, more gameplay options. At first, you just move. You've got a lot of time to just figure out moving, because they all start with a slow-moving train. Well, the first one has an agonizing slow-moving train, but also introduces you to the world itself. And that can also be a useful part of a tutorial. It doesn't just teach you the mechanics, but the world, because it teaches you the entire game. And after you get used to the movement, you get the interaction with other people. You get to interact with objects. You get eventually to using objects. You get to weapons. You get to concepts of damage and other things. To picking up that can and getting beaten up by a Metro Cop because you plunge it in its face. Tutorials like these are obfuscated. You do not notice them. That's why they're effective. That's why they work. And I'm gonna say it, Dark Souls is not good at tutorials, like at all. I've got fuzzy memories of the first one's tutorial, but from what I gazed upon the interwebs, it teaches you to play defensively, which is not what you do in that game. In that game you pretty much have to survive by killing everyone before they even touch you. That's how the game is best played. That's how you excel at it. The second one has signposts. Oh joy, that's wow. Though to be fair, before the signposts you actually have a much better tutorial where you have to fight, well, you don't have to fight. There is an optional enemy in Dark Souls 2, that big troll thing. Trying to figure out how to beat that thing, that is a perfect tutorial. It'll teach you that everything in the game will outright murderize you. Also, there's the rats before that will also murder you. But just trying to beat that thing again and again, that's what I first thought the tutorial was. The signpost really let me down. Honestly, it was a major letdown. But that beginning part, that was good. That was a good idea. Just have a big, clunky, bunky enemy there that you can't defeat easily, that will outright one-shot hit kill you and munch you, and just have it sit there, taunting you with its existence, making you wonder, hey, wonder what will happen if I try to kill it? And bam, there's your perfect learning experience. Sure, it doesn't go into details about invulnerability frames and all that nonsense that's kind of too obfuscated, but it's a good start. Tutorials also do sometimes have the problem of not teaching you the specifics of a game. Dark Souls is one chance where you have to pretty much look up invulnerability frames on the web. And one more recent example was Street Fighter V, where it taught you how to play a fighting game, just not the specific of Street Fighter V. Though I do believe they corrected that in the updated version. Now, what is the marketing definition of a tutorial? Well, that would be, do we even make games that need one anymore? Tutorials are not really a big thing in games, big games I mean, because why would they be? What's there to learn in Call of Duty? You point the stick and you shoot with it. What's there to learn in Battlefield? You point a different stick, it's kind of same stick, and you shoot with it. They don't accurately convey even their own mechanics, whereas Call of Duty, I don't think Call of Duty has that much of a bullet drop-off, though Battlefield does. And I'm not sure if either game accurately represent that in the tutorials, I mean the difference. Not that I remember at least. For the most part, we're at a point where there's really not a lot you have to teach a player unless you actually do some very, very complex, very niche, very specific things different from any other game around you. Otherwise, it's like reading the manual for a tablet. If you're gonna buy a new one, if you're gonna buy anybody a tablet, are they gonna read the manual? No, they don't need to. At this point, people understand it. People know the concept. It's in the zeitgeist. Most games can easily be understood through cultural osmosis or some sort of thing like that. And yet still, some games are, again, quite bad at teaching you how to play them. Oftentimes, not even because of their mechanics, but because of their interface. It tends to be a bit confusing, a bit too obtuse, and their controls are not really well documented. They somehow managed to be less intuitive than Ultima 4 was, and you needed to have the key layout of Ultima 4 written somewhere separately because you always forgot what was the scribe button on and what scrying was. So closes this chapter of the Gaming Codex. Come back next time when we will talk about a brand new subject. Goodbye.